At its worst, Death Stranding 2 falls victim to some uneven pacing, clunky dialogue, and a predictable story. So the question is, does it have enough good to overcome that? Welcome to another story review. I review gaming stories and review the narrative. Last time I gave Clair Obscur an 8.5. Is Death Stranding 2 better story-wise? I'll give it a score at the end. Death Stranding 2 once again follows everyone's favorite Daryl Dixon, Sam Porter Bridges. This time he's tasked with connecting the continent of Australia to the chiral network, along with some old friends like Fragile, Hartman, Deadman, as well as new ones like Dollman, Tomorrow, Rainy, and Tarman. When we meet Sam in the first game, he's afraid to be touched and doesn't want to talk to anyone, but overcomes that by the end of the game. In this game, Sam suffers a great tragedy and deals with the other side of the coin in terms of connection and relationships, and that's losing them. Right off the bat, is the story better than the first one? I'm gonna say yes. I actually like the main theme of the first game better, but the second one is told in a much cleaner way that's a lot more digestible. Not once was I confused with what was going on, and I can't say that for the first game. That might be due to the corpus database, which you can access at any point, that says who everyone is, what the lore means, and when Fragile mentions chiralium for the 200th time, you're like, I know what that is. I think sometimes with these big lore sci-fi type games, the writers can sometimes forget that it doesn't make as much sense to everyone else as it does for them. And of course, it makes complete sense to them, but they have to convey it. I've seen a lot of people say that this one's like babyfying the first game. Literally. It's the version for normies, for the mainstream, but I think to an extent, that's not a bad thing. The story feels simpler, which sometimes a simpler story is better. In the first game, Amelie is a extinction entity, and she's also Sam's mom, but like his adopted sister, and she wants to end the world, but she doesn't want to, and she made Sam immortal, and that's just one character. In this game, Higgs is bad, and he wants revenge, and we gotta stop him. A lot better. But story-wise, the game has so many other improvements over the first game. In the first game, I didn't really buy any of the relationships Sam made aside from maybe Deadman. Him and Fragile seemed closer by the end, but the most memorable thing about Fragile in Death Stranding is the fact she's played by Lea Seydoux. In Death Stranding 2, she's so much better as a character. She's fun, she's caring, she's dedicated to the mission, and an actual good friend to Sam and the other members of this crew. Throughout the game, Fragile assembles a crew aboard her ship, the DHV Magellan, and it serves as the home base of not only Sam, but everyone who joins them on this journey. By the end, it feels like a communal area, and you feel like a team. Where in Death Stranding 1, everyone kind of just pops up randomly at their own random points in the story. But this brings me to one of my big complaints with the game. While the relationships and dynamics are a lot better than the first game, I'm not gonna say they're good. None of these characters would I put up there as like these great side characters in gaming. Not like an Ellie, a Mimir, Elizabeth, Cortana, nobody like that. If it had to be someone, it would easily be Fragile, but as much as I like her, she's nowhere near those characters. I think the main reason actually is Sam. I like Sam, but I don't love Sam. And the reason I don't love him is the same reason I don't love the other characters. The man interacts with nobody. For example, Sam gets his own Mimir in this game, in Dollman, who's attached at his hip and gives him advice, lore, gameplay tips, everything. You would think after all the time they spend in the game, Sam and Dollman would have this great dynamic and this great relationship by the end. And not really. I like Sam, like I said, I like Dollman, but I don't love them together. Dollman is always dropping lore on Sam and recapping these big story moments, and Sam acknowledges him maybe 10 times throughout the story. There's no back and forth, there's no dynamic. Sam says his line, and then Fragile says her line, and then Tarman goes, "Hey Sam, it's Tarman. For unknown reasons, the currents are down again." The characters are all enjoyable, but it's almost in a singular existence. There's no one scene in the game where all the characters are going back and forth in conversation, cutting each other off, and talking over each other like how real people do. I would say it's my greatest complaint with the game's story. As much as I like it, if they made the dialogue, the dynamics a little more natural, I think this could be like an all-time group of gaming characters. As weird and unnatural as the dynamics might feel, I still like all the characters, except maybe Hartman. Fragile, don't get me started. Dollman, he's great. Tarman, fantastic. Rainy, love her. Tomorrow, hell yes, dude. Higgs, oh, we're gonna talk about Higgs later. Neil, Neil Vanna! Just like the first game, we get those weird bits that piece the story together throughout brief scenes every once in a while. In the first game, it's the Mads Mikkelsen one, and here it's the scene stealer Neil Vanna. Just like Cliff in the first game, Neil isn't what we think he is. He's a character with a lot more depth than most others in the game, quite frankly. But unlike Cliff, he's a lot more connected to adult Sam, having a really involved relationship with Sam's widowed partner wife, Lucy. Don't want to give too much away, but I really enjoyed the scenes with Neil and how they directly were connected to what was going on in the present. Before another glaze quake comes in, there's another thing this game does towards the end that doesn't work for me. The end of this game overall is sensational. Everything with Sam and Fragile and Higgs dialogue-wise is some of the best in the series. However, the last few hours falls victim to some of Kojima's trademarked wackiness, which, don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of. I like Dollman singing the song in the hot spring. I like the fact you can throw pizza dough to knock out enemies. I enjoy it and I acknowledge it's part of what makes Kojima games Kojima games. However, time and a place, guys. Towards the end of this game, there are a few of these moments that pop up at very pivotal, dramatic moments in the story, and it really kills the vibe. I'm talking about the scene with Charlie, you know, the one. If they placed that at a different point in the game, it's great, because context aside, it's a funny scene and it would have been a cool random event that happens in a side mission or something like that. But at this point in the game, it doesn't work. The ending with the guitars and Higgs, I'm a little more inclined to be like, okay, sure. But it gets to a point where Sam doesn't feel like Sam at all. And at the ending of the game, it's a bummer, as epic as it is. So at this point, it might sound like I have more bad to say about this game than good, but get ready for compliment time. Starting with Higgs, dude, it is actually impressive how good Higgs is in this game. In the first one, he's fine, but he's still Amelie's goon at the end of the day, in every use of the term. In this game, he's on a new level, and easily one of the best villains I've seen in a very long time. Not only is Troy Baker the best performance in the game, but it's one of the best performances of Troy Baker's career. He's able to be so much more fun, so much more entertaining, while always being evil and vile, and somebody you root against. I said it in my video last week where I did a top 10 characters list for this game, but every time he leaves a scene, you're waiting for the next time he shows up. And then they dive into his motive and what he's been doing since the last game, and it just makes a lot more sense. Best character in the game, hands down, and he perfectly ties into that theme I touched on earlier. Once you make connections, how do you deal with losing them? I'm gonna make a full villain review on Higgs, so make sure you subscribe, stay tuned to that. We gotta praise Kojima though, because as weird as his games can be, there is a trade-off. Kojima makes the games he wants to make, not what big companies are forcing him to do because certain things are going to test well with audiences. This is a man and his team executing on a vision of what this game is, and because of that, it has so much style. It's so cinematic. And it feels like every choice made is completely intentional. The cutscenes where they fight are some of the best and well-directed ones I've ever seen in a game. The sound design and art direction are also unmatched. I know we're getting a little away from the narrative here, but I have to bring it up because so many of these ideas work and make the game feel memorable. The Ghost Mechs, the DHV Magellan, the Doom's abilities, Fragile's weird, like Hands scarf. All very memorable parts of this game that make it stand out in a world of gaming narratives. The music, the atmosphere, all perfect in setting a scene for Sam to take a trek through the snow. More so than most games, I would say the gameplay here feels like a part of the story, like you're playing a cutscene, and in that sense, it's really special. All in all, while the Death Stranding 2 can be messy at points, and it leaves a bit to be desired from the drawbridge group dynamics, there's enough character, emotion, and heart to make me glad I enjoyed it. And if the gameplay doesn't turn you off, I'd even recommend it. Troy Baker steals every scene, but there's also a lot more to enjoy character-wise, mainly from Neil Vanna, Fragile, and Dahlman, and also Sam. Like, shout out to Sam. The tone is messy towards the end, but it's one of the most imaginative, unique, and cinematic stories you can experience in gaming. I'm gonna give Death Stranding 2 on the beach a narrative score, 7.8. Look at that. Thanks so much for watching. I'm gonna do more of these soon. Check out my one on Claire Obscure Expedition 33. If you haven't, hit subscribe. Higgs Villain review coming soon.